I'm John Grafft, and I love Chicago real estate. Between showings, I stop in my favorite places, talk with local business owners, and bring their story to you. This is my Chicago.
So instead of when people come in, trying to sneak past them to check them in, I can just pull out my phone.
So how much has something like that changed since you guys have been doing this?
Oh, the reservation software stuff? I mean, quite a bit. Like OpenTable was the first one, and they had pretty much cornered the market, but then Resi came in and absorbed a couple other platforms, and what they're doing is charging a monthly flat fee rather than what OpenTable charges, which is a sort of per reservation-based fee plus a monthly flat fee.
So OpenTable would take a percentage of, is it a percentage, is that accurate?
No, I think it's like literally like $1 or something. I don't remember.
Okay, so $1 for each reservation.
For each reservation,
and whether someone cancels or not is irrelevant?
That I don't remember, because we haven't used OpenTable. We switched over to Resi before the pandemic, so this would have been like 3 or 4 years ago, and I don't remember the exact breakdown of Yeah.
And you like Resi more because they don't have the percentage-based or the fee-based, it's just one flat fee?
Well, at first, our biggest hesitation with Resi was that OpenTable had the largest sort of user base, because they were the first to really do online reservations.
Yeah. Like, and they give you those points, right? Like my wife is,
Yeah.
I call her an OpenTable whore because she always just wants to like, do it on OpenTable, get the points. I'm like, okay, chill out, relax. Like, we can eat anywhere we want.
Well, I think what changed, though, is that as Resi started to absorb other things, they grew, and I feel like their user base is bigger. And because Resi requires you to link your account to your cell phone, and you can also set credit card cancellation fees, your likelihood of cancellation is way lower because it's linked to an actual phone number, whereas OpenTable, which started in '98, was just linked to an email.
Wow, really?
Yeah. Like it started in San Francisco in '98 when people were making like literally,
It's like Craigslist era.
Exactly. Yeah. And so their user base, which is huge, there's a lot of stuff on there that's like, your at rocketmail.com email that you're not using anymore. Are you actually an OpenTable user?
I emailed someone at AOL yesterday.
Right, yeah.
And they're a potential client.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, I see problems with this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I don't know. I haven't really used OpenTable in 3 or 4 years, so I can't really speak to which one is truly better. But I do think that from like a monetary standpoint, and us pretty much doing the same amount of covers that we did, having a flat rate makes more sense, particularly if it's not hurting our business, you know what I mean?
When you say covers, what does that mean?
Covers, so there's a reservation, right? And then the party size of the reservation is 4. That's 4 covers.
Okay.
So covers is the amount of total humans that you serve in an evening.
So is it fair to say that's people at a table?
Sure, but covers is the people that came in the entire...
So you might have 200 covers in an evening?
Correct.
Okay.
We won't, because we're 24 seats.
Because you're boutique and cool.
Yeah, because we're in a tiny basement. But if you have 200 people in and out in an evening, that's 200 covers. Yeah. Guests, you could say guests too, patrons.
Okay.
Yeah.
That many people coming in.
Yeah.
In this business, I feel that you need you either need the volume or you need the price point. And I don't feel like you're an intimidating price point, but I can also imagine how it would be difficult to produce the volume you may need here. When the space was taken over, what was that thought process like?
Well, I think that our main concern, even before the pandemic and post-pandemic, is having a per-person average that fits our pro forma, which is like basically our business model, right? To where we can operationally cover everything, pay everyone's salary, and now also like health insurance and all that jazz. So that is just very much dictated by what you kind of need to make per seat or per person average PPA, whatever you want to call that. And while ours is not like at the fine dining level, we are higher than more casual dining places because we're so small that we have to be. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to achieve all of the goals in our business model and keep the lights on, basically. So I would say that, we maybe are a little bit more expensive than restaurants that you would classify in our same dining category, but I feel like we make up for that in quality of food and attentiveness and service in general, because there's not a lot of people that can fit in here, so you're always going to get attentive service,
Out of all the people I've met with in the restaurant industry, you seem, just quickly, we've only been sitting here for 15 minutes or so, you seem to have a very strong understanding of the numbers, and you've already said a number of acronyms that I haven't heard before.
Oh, well, and that can also be, different for every sort of business and how they talk about things. Check average versus guest average. Per person average is the same thing as guest average, Covers, guests, reservations. It's all just like thinking of the same thing in different ways, I guess.
Are you a numbers person?
Not by choice.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've absorbed that or learned that through the process of being here?
Yeah. I mean, and then, high school and college math and algebra helped, but, it is applicable in, I think, every small business, and in one with such small margins as hospitality.
Yeah.
If you're not looking at that, you're just going to close probably, which is why you see, like, I forget what the statistic is, because it's all probably 90% in the first 3 months.
Yeah.
Who even knows what that is anymore now that we're like in a completely different world, different set of rules, like how that's going to pan out,
I agree. Through the pandemic, you've seen restaurants that had a very strong following seem to do more. They seem to do better. They're more successful. And then anyone that was starting out or anyone that didn't have the strong audience that you needed, they died.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the PPA situation definitely helped a lot of the mom and pops survive, and without that, there's no way that the amount of sales would meet the needs of paying employees. Just because takeout, you lose a huge portion of your profitability in takeout, which is the bar.
Yeah,
the bar. You have no drinks. And even though you can do to-go cocktails, the perceived value of a cocktail in a bottle is not the same as when you get it in a glass with a garnish made in front of you, and the likelihood of you getting 3 cocktails to go is not the same.
Well, I hate to admit it, but during everything that happened, I didn't order any to-go cocktails. I might have been on the street and ordered one when I was walking somewhere or doing something, and I thought it was fun. But if I was ordering food in, I definitely didn't. Because here's my bar. Here's my fridge. It's already occupied. I'm good to go.
Yeah, I mean, I invested in fixing up my at-home bar. Why not?
Yeah.
And then there's a million resources on how to make cocktails.
Yeah. And it's fun.
And it's fun, and people had time on their hands.
Yeah.
I think people also went through this thing where it was like, oh, let's have fun making cocktails, and then it's like, okay, let's figure out sobriety now, because now I know how to make all the cocktails at home. There's definitely been a lot of people, I think, that have stopped drinking now too.
Yes.
We're putting out way more mocktails. We're putting out way more mocktails.
I didn't know what that was until this all happened. And then I also see the price point. I'm like, the price point's a little crazy. So it seems a lot in a lot of restaurants.
For us, ours isn't crazy. It's more than a soft drink, but less than a cocktail. And
How much is a cocktail here?
14.
Okay.
And then our specials, which are on our little specials board over there, ranges from 10 to 14.
Okay.
Or sometimes 15. We'll put up a cocktail that's 15, but it has a lot of special prep and ingredients. But so
that's what I expected.
Yeah. So we're charging less than cocktails, but because it's still using we juice our own pineapples, we juice all of our own stuff in house. And then we make a bunch of other house-made ingredients, syrups and tinctures and stuff like that. And we'll use those to create a mocktail. Now, sure, it's more expensive than a soft drink that comes in a can, but, so is a dish that you get off a menu. Yeah. It's more expensive than something you reheat in your microwave because we're actually making all the components that go into the drink. But I would say we probably charge less than a lot of places because we don't have any mocktails on our menu.
Okay.
We kind of do a thing where it's like, oh, do you like pineapple? Do you like ginger? Do you like lime?
That. So it's on demand.
And we just kind of like push the mocktail button on the POS and then put make something with ginger, and then the bartender, whoever is doing it, makes it. And there's definitely like a few that are like basically, this is basically a mojito without rum. This is basically like kind of like a ginger ale. This is basically like a pineapple ginger situation. So
I do love a good ginger beer. There's nothing like that.
They're
It's
good.
solid.
It is.
What is your role here?
I'm the general manager.
Okay.
I'm also the head server, you could say. We have a total of 6 employees here. Myself, Michael, Archie, my bar manager.
You have someone named Archie here?
What's that?
You have someone named Archie here?
Archie, yeah.
I love that name. It's a classic
Archie will be
name.
in probably in a little bit. You might get to meet him.
And he's the bartender?
He's the bartender
Okay.
and beverage director. So he does all of the ordering and programming for the beverage side of the menu and also bartends full-time. And I do all of the operational other stuff, and then I'm the full-time server. And then Michael, who just recently joined us, is going to be our second server/support member. And then we just roll with 3 people up here and 3 people in the back, and that's it.
Thank you for the waters, by the way. We've done a number of these interviews, and without being specific, it's always interesting to see how accommodating someone is. And I always tie it into the business because your business, like mine, is very service oriented, and it's all about keeping the client or customer, in your case, happy. And I always find it funny when someone doesn't offer me water. It's the simplest thing you can do, and I don't think anyone walks in off the street without having thirst.
Yeah, it's also 90 degrees right now.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
On a hot day in Chicago,
Yeah.
you walk in anywhere, you're like, I nearly had to ask you for the water. I just want the water.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
No problem.
What were you doing before this?
Before this, I worked at our other restaurant that didn't survive, which was Bar Basque, and that was in Westtown. I was the general manager there.
In Chicago?
In Chicago, yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
And so it was a very similar sort of style to this place, but it was 90 seats instead of 24. I think 85 seats instead of 24, which is what we have in here. And we focus a lot on Spanish and French cuisine as well. We do a lot more of the pinchos style stuff, which is like the small 1 or 2 bite dishes from like Galicia in Spain, where they like, it's kind of like a bar food thing.
Yeah.
Very hard to kind of make an 85-seat restaurant survive a pandemic, and so it didn't go well. But here we were able to keep chugging along, and now I actually worked here in 2017 and came on to work here and open the other restaurant. And so did Archie, my bartender and bar manager. He kind of moved over there as well, too. And now we're just back here. It's kind of like a rewind to the staff that was here in 2017.
So that's interesting. I'd say that's like San Sebastian, definitely Spanish, French style food. I would imagine there'd be a higher margin on a business like that. Like I think of somewhere like Café Barbarriba, they're in tapas everywhere, and it's fun. People like it. I think they drink more when they have that. What's the theme here?
Well, we're named after MFK Fisher, Mary Frances Kennedy Fisher, who was a food writer in the 30s and 40s. She has a bunch of different volumes of work, and they're kind of like prose narrative style writing about food, a lot about travel. She focused a lot on Spain and France as well, but we kind of get a little bit more of, I think, a larger playground because it's not technically as specific, because it's really based on an author rather than a region. I think the easiest way to think about it is she's kind of like definitely a predecessor to someone like Anthony Bourdain, who treated food journalism as also travel journalism. That was her mainstay. Started things like the Napa Valley Wine Review and stuff like that too.
So is this a tribute to her?
It is. So we just went with MFK, and the owners, Scott and Sari Worsham, actually got the green light from her family to go with that moniker, and that's that.
Cool.
It's a tribute to her writing and like sort of style of dining. One of her biggest quotes is, "First we eat, then we do everything else." Sort of like when you set the table, you're like setting the stage for a good time.
That's hers? I've heard that before.
Yeah.
I didn't know who it was attributed to.
Yeah.
When you have owners, so this is the first interview we've done that hasn't been with the owners, but it
Yeah.
seems like it's your place.
It's not at all my place. It was very
But
much
it's
their
not,
place.
But I feel like you own it.
Well, we have worked together
Only
for...
doesn't own the responsibility, not own the place, right?
Sure. Well, I mean, you know, I've worked with this kind of same team for 4 or 5 years now. So it's like, I want this place to succeed because I'm very invested in it because it, you know,
Pays your bills.
pays
You
my
just
bills.
said you bought a condo.
I did, yeah.
Like, I need this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that also has to, there's like some really cool first-time home buyer stuff through Freddie Mac that came out as a part of the stimulus package. That was super helpful as well too.
Where'd you end up buying?
In Logan Square.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whereabouts?
So, near Armitage and Kimball.
Why'd you choose that area?
I've lived in roughly that area for the past 8 or 9 years, kind of like hopping around different apartments there. I just really like it over there. My favorite bar, Best Intentions, which hasn't reopened, is over there. I like the coffee shops over there. There's a Dominican restaurant that saves my life some days that's right there. So Rosa's Lounge right there, the blues place.
No.
Oh, Rosa's is great.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's been there since like the 40s or 50s or something like that.
I think of
Yeah.
Armitage around where you are.
Yeah.
And first up, I come to Scofflaw, and I think of the gin bar. And then I think I go to Map Room in Bucktown.
That's Bucktown, yeah.
But everything in between is there as the periphery.
Man, Rosa's Lounge is legendary. I think it's been.
I gotta check this
it's
out.
Like,
It's never hit my radar.
it's like a miniature version of Kingston Mines.
Okay.
Yeah, it's great. I don't. If you like live music and blues and I go there. Yeah.
Good to know.
And it's like in the neighborhoods. I mean, not that. I mean, you know, Kingston Mines isn't exactly in the loop, but it's a little bit, you know, more well known. And Rosa's is like the locals blues bar, if that makes sense.
I feel like if someone was going to do blues and they were going to come to Chicago, they were going to hit Kingston Mines.
Yes.
And they're going to hit blues across the street, maybe.
Right.
And they might hit Buddy Guys or some other place in the city that has a bigger venue for it.
Well, I mean, you know, the West Side has blues too. There's a whole style called the West Side Shuffle.
I never think of the West Side, I think of blues. That's why it really caught me off guard.
Yeah.
Are they having shows every night of the week, or for the nights they're open?
I don't know what their schedule is right now. They can have shows again. I haven't actually been back since things reopened, but I did see some stuff on their stream. I watched their stream a few times.
So there's still live stream going?
I don't know if the live stream is still going, but when there was nothing to do but live stream and go on a walk, I did a couple of their live streams. And
Okay.
I did some Empty Bottle live streams too. Those were fun.
So were they playing music, just live stream? And
Yeah,
okay.
a lot of places, a lot of the venues were doing live streams or doing like a pre-recorded, then buy tickets, watch a live stream sort of thing. Yeah, that was fun. Like, did that thing where we, used the cocktail bar at home that we had established because let's make drinks at home and like, yeah, it's a good time. Did you do any streaming stuff? Like, did you try to?
No, I'm not. So we did this stuff, but we didn't do anything live. We were just out there creating videos every single day, and that's kind of how this was all birthed. My favorite places disappeared, and because I don't have a car, I Uber everywhere.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to have my same structure, and my structure was a lack of a structure.
Okay.
But it was going to this appointment, okay, you know what, I never tried this restaurant, I always wanted to, it's nearby, why don't I go ride a bike over there, why don't I go walk over there, I'll hang out there for a few hours, get some work done. I usually had a laptop with me, or I'm doing things from my phone, and I go from place to place to place, and in between appointments, I hang out. And you get to know those people, you get to know those owners, and that's what started all of this, because it was hard to see the places I loved the most disappear.
What was like the place that disappeared that was the one you loved them, or what was on what's your list?
Thankfully, nothing actually disappeared for the long run.
Oh, okay.
But it was that time where everything was just shut down.
Yeah.
And you're like, are you going to disappear?
Yeah.
Are you going to be open again?
Yeah.
And I think if I really thought about it, I could think of a few places. But I didn't really have these favorites because I'd go from neighborhood to neighborhood to neighborhood, and it was just, okay, I haven't been here, why don't I try there?
Okay.
Or if I'm in my own neighborhood, like I live in the Gold Coast, I'm like, well, RH was kind of my second office.
Okay.
Because it's super nice, you can sit there, it's air conditioned, it's good. there are a number of places like that you frequent.
Yeah.
What were you doing before this?
Before this, during the pandemic, I was...
Before the pandemic.
Oh, before the pandemic.
Before MFK.
Well, I was at Basque, then MFK before that. Then I was the AGM and beverage person at Chop Shop before that.
In Bucktown?
Yeah, I guess that's Bucktown, Wicker Park.
Yeah.
Before that, I worked at a place called The Kitchen, which is actually like a larger corporate restaurant group. The Kitchen Cafe, their first one's in like Boulder, Colorado. And they were like, that was in that where everything was farm to table wave, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But now it's just kind of like, well, shouldn't you just be doing that? You know what I mean? Like, and then before that, I was working at Silver Cloud, if you remember that place.
No. Oh, on
that was in
the train on like Westtown?
No, that's Silver Palm.
That's Silver Palm. That's Silver Palm.
Silver Cloud was a little neighborhood like comfort food and beer place in Bucktown on Damon and Wabansia. And actually, Archie and I worked there together as well. And I also bartended for a while at Gold Star Bar.
Okay.
So those were all, everything I just mentioned was either like bartending or bar managing, or like a amalgamation of those things.
Was there anything in particular that made you gravitate towards the service industry?
Well, so I was a musician in a past life. So we traveled sometimes up to 6 weeks at a time. This was when I was in my early 20s, and the service industry is adaptable to people having time off because there's a lot of seasonal work and stuff like that. And so it just worked where I could take weeks at a time off and still come back and have a job. And then I'm not a famous musician, if you didn't know that. So now I'm in the industry, and it's like, I do think that being a musician and traveling, you spend a lot of times in bars and restaurants. Yeah. And so I do have an affinity for them, particularly ones that are good and enjoyable. So I think that helped me kind of like settle into a position like this. It's just like, spent all my youthful years in bars and restaurants and cafes, and I know what I like and I don't like. So I have some experience to help a place out, you know.
What kind of music did you play?
Well, I played in a group that was like probably, you could consider like alt country with like Psychedelia involved with it. Played in another group that was more... I'm here.
Yeah. And you're here.
Sure.
So Psychedelia?
Or psychedelic. Psychodelic, like, okay, so like you know, like it was
trippy music.
Sure, it had like a lot of like
country.
It had roots Americana, and then like, you know, a little bit of like psychedelic poured into it.
We're gonna get a song. We're gonna play it.
I mean,
have to.
It was. I don't know. I'll send you a link, and then
Ted?
No, that's
Ted.
That's Garth.
Garth.
Yeah.
But I think Bill and Ted. Ted. That's Garth.
My fiance has Wayne, and it's the same picture, so we just kind of like. But I can send you a link to that, and then I played in a bunch of different groups, but the one I was first describing, that's the one that did the most touring when we were in our 20s, early 20s. Yeah.
So you stopped doing that. How'd you decide that was the end?
I mean, it just gets harder and harder to live out of a van. And eventually it's like everyone sort of moves on, you know. It's a decision that makes itself sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah, if that makes sense.
I can see that. That's hard. Whenever you're doing anything, and especially that's an entrepreneurial endeavor, whether someone wants to look at it like that way or not, right? Doesn't mean there was a lot of thought behind it. Doesn't mean it made sense, but you're following your passion, you're going towards something, and you're hoping for the best. And every musician that exists started there.
Yeah.
Right? Successful or not, it all started with the same passion. So that brought you into this space. What drew you to the first establishment to start working there?
I mean, it's just where I just needed a job, and I was like 19 years old, and was like took a server job somewhere, and just that was it. I was in college, and it was a part-time job, and that just sort of after college was an easy transition to like continue to play music and have something on the side, because you can just be like, hey, I can only work Monday through Thursday at a lunch place and then devote your weekend to doing music. It's not a lot of other stuff you can do that at, you know?
Yeah.
And you can still, like, you know, and in terms of, like, minimum, you typically make a lot more than minimum wage, so you can work only 3 or 4 days and then still have 3 or 4 days to devote to the music part of it. So I think it's just, I mean, you find a lot of artists in the service industry because it's something that can be part-time and is typically a lot more lucrative than retail or, you know, if you're an app person, what is that called?
A gig worker?
Gig worker, yeah.
An app person?
An app person. See, I'm learning new things too, terms too. Gig worker. Yeah, I mean, I think there's always been tons of artists and musicians in the service industry.
Being a GM now, does that type of mentality bother you or frustrate you sometimes, where it's like, I can only work Monday and Friday?
It used to, it doesn't anymore. And I think that the pandemic helped me kind of, like, gave me enough time to think about that. And when we were working at Basque, and it was a much bigger place and a lot of moving gears, a lot of different people to consider their time off and their needs, sometimes I would get frustrated with that, but I just try not to anymore because the whole point of what we do is to help people enjoy their time and to have a good time. And if our staff doesn't like being here because they have to be here and they have no other choices and they don't get the time off that they need, then it's like that's not going to make it to the guests, you know. And you know,
you think it shines through on the food?
I think it shines through on the food, on the service. I mean, I'm sure you've been somewhere and you're like, that was good, but it was just kind of like, did anyone want to be there?
Especially when you've been somewhere and it was great, and then you come back again and nothing compares to the original experience. There's zero consistency.
Yeah.
I always worry about that in our business. I'm like, I want someone who bought a home with us this year, and if they buy a home with us 5 years from now, to have a very similar experience. If anything, I want it to improve.
Yeah.
And whether you're a restaurant, a hotel, a realtor, it doesn't matter what business, you want the same things to happen every single time along the way.
Yeah, I can see that, but I'm not always. Consistency is important in restaurants and hospitality, but having a sort of robotic consistency is almost a downside, and not why people, I think, go out to eat. They want an experience, and if it's exactly the same all the time, you know, that's McDonald's. You know what I mean? Like that McDonald's hamburger, it's always the same. That for the most part, right?
No, you're 100% right. I guess it's the consistency, but a change of menu. So the consistency is service,
sure,
an experience, but you want some variety in the food, so you have something new to bring to your palate.
Yeah, I get that too, but with service as well, if you approach every single guest and every single table with like these are the steps that you do, it'll never work. Because you're dealing with humans, and humans are wildly inconsistent. The same patron can come in 1,000 times, and every visit they're going to be different because they ate something different that day. Something happened on their walk over that was different.
Those are the biggest reasons. Yeah, you never know what they experience before they walk through the door.
Right. So you have these tools of consistency, right? These things that you can use for every guest, but then you sometimes have to throw those out the window and use your problem-solving brain, just like anything else. Just like I'm sure when you're making a sale on a house or a car.
We just bought a house. It wasn't smooth, was it?
Actually, it wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
We bought a condo, and it really, outside of like some like first-time home buyer course thing I had to take, which was the biggest pain in the butt, it really wasn't that bad. We had requested some repairs. The previous owner just said, okay, sure. And that was it. And there wasn't as much back and forth as other people. The crazy thing is that we got to see very few places because we would make an appointment of something we saw and it would disappear. Yeah. And we did a condo, which the place we got, its assessment went down 4%, whereas like single family homes all went up like crazy. Yeah, but it still, I think, forced the same. It's like, oh, some condos have gone down, so now because the interest rate is low and the price, it forced the same situation where people snatching up, it didn't. It's like such a crazy time. You know more about it than I do.
Yeah, you're right. Everything you said is right.
Yeah.
For your home buyer grant, what did you get?
I mean, I don't remember at this point. It was something.
Was it 7,500, 15, or 70? Yeah, like
it was like they covered something at closing costs. It was something like a few $1,000s extra at closing costs, which took us, made it so that we then had 20% down saved up. You know what I mean? Because that actually.
So it was able to bridge the gap.
Right, and then we didn't have to pay the insurance on our monthly mortgage rate, which has kept our. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's why. So the specifics of it, I don't remember because that was happening at the same time as we were reopening here.
Yeah.
And so there's just like so much going on. Yeah.
What's it like opening a restaurant like this, and what's it like? How do you choose the menu? How do you choose what's being served?
I don't choose the menu. Our chef, Matthew Ginsberg, and then also our owners kind of hash that out. So and go ahead.
Does that work on like a quarterly basis, a weekly basis? When does that meeting of the minds happen to choose what's on the menu?
So we're always looking at product mixes as well, things that are doing well and aren't doing well. And the things that aren't selling and are just kind of like dying, you know what I mean? We need to take those off. And that kind of will inform you. I mean, that's a very much numbers answer to it, but for real,
that's the right answer.
Yeah, it's like if this thing isn't performing, even though we love this dish, we need to put something else on the menu because it's just taking up space, and that's potential sales that we're losing.
What's an example of something that you thought would do well, or that you saw on the menu and expected to do well, but didn't? You ever remove it?
So we were doing this New York strip that was like cooked in a very traditional French way where you like butter baste it in a cast iron and sear on both sides, finished in the oven with some wilted greens and mushrooms, right? And meat prices have gone up a lot, but just talking to other friends in the industry, they were still like, our steaks are selling, right? My girlfriend or my fiance works at Deus Ex, and their New York strip, or was it, no, their ribeye, which they were pricing, I think, for the same size cut, like $14 more than us. They were like, we're selling out every Friday and Saturday. And I was like, great, let's go with it. We thought it was really tasty. It's a steak, not too much to think about. It does not move here. I think it just has to do with it. It doesn't fall into what...
It doesn't fit into what you come here for.
Well, we've always, but the other thing is, on our previous iteration, before the pandemic, the steak on the menu, whatever it was, just sold.
Really?
Yeah, and I think that maybe what's happening now is something of what you said. It's like all the places that had a following and had fans, right? Those survived.
Yeah.
So I feel like we're getting mostly our fans, and but previously where we're getting a lot of people trying us for the first time, maybe we're getting some...
So that's what it'd be. Someone who's coming here, they saw steak on the menu, like,
right.
Hey, it's safe.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's do that.
Exactly.
And your regulars are like, no, give me your fish.
Yeah, exactly.
What's going on in the seafood department?
Exactly. They're like, we want some shellfish, so we're here to eat some clams and mussels and stuff.
I would never come here and order anything that wasn't seafood.
Well, I think that would be a mistake because the thing that's replacing the steak is albondigas, which are Spanish meatballs, and it's a pork and veal meatball, and it's really good.
And that's an entree?
It's going to be entree size,
okay.
Yeah. And our entrees kind of live in the world where it's like they're probably too big for you to finish, right? Most of them.
That's the opposite of every other restaurant in
But
Chicago.
we want you to share, and we have like this 1, 2, 3 on our menu, which is like small, medium, large.
Okay.
And we're like, get some things from each section, and like just share everything, and you'll have a good time. Like that's but you know, you can't really tell people how to eat, so we never say you can't order your own food.
Well, I feel like you go to any restaurant in Chicago now, with exceptions, of course, but average speaking, you walk in and it's like, hi, welcome to so-and-so. Have you dined with us before?
Yes.
We serve small plates. We recommend you order 3 or 4 for the table. It's a very replicable experience. And as soon as I hate to say it, but as soon as I hear that, I'm like, I slump in my chair a little bit.
I understand. And see, to your point that you were talking about, with consistency in service, you need to like be gauging your guests and see if they need that spiel or not.
Yeah.
Be like, have you dined with us before? And then if they say no, it's like, well, do you have any questions on how the 3 sections on this
question.
menu works? And then normally someone will be like, yeah, I really don't understand. Then you can like whatever, give that spiel, right? But if you were to respond, be like, well, is it kind of like they kind of grow in size and you share? It's like, yeah, you get it. So we didn't have to do that spiel. So like coming in with that McDonald's-like consistency of service to everyone would be off-putting to you, who's like, yeah, I've eaten at a restaurant since 2010. Everyone's doing it this way because it's like, that's how you should eat.
It's a very valid point. I always say people want that. People say you should treat everyone the same. And I completely disagree. I'm never going to treat a child the same way I treat an adult, and I'm not going to treat a 70-year-old person the same way I treat a 30-year-old person. And lacking the nuance is lacking an understanding of how the world actually works, and it's disrespecting someone for their individualism.
Yeah.
And I like what you're saying, because you're going to sit down, you're going to come here and eat, and the server's going to talk to you.
Yeah, me. I'll talk to you.
You're going to talk to us, and you're going to wonder, okay, are you picking up what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And if I have the questions, I'm going to ask you. But when you sit down, you get that same spiel, your eyes glaze over, you're like, okay, so get the small plates and let's go.
Yeah, I mean, there's a million different ways to approach. I think the idea of treating everyone the same, you should treat everyone with the same courtesy, right?
Yes.
With respect and courtesy, dignity, and that you should open with that. But some people don't even want that. Like,
You don't think so?
oh, absolutely. Like,
Tell me more.
okay, sure. So you get, your neighbor Jerry Lewandowski comes in and he just likes to give you a hard time and talk to you about how you don't have Bud Light on the menu. Like, he wants to riff with you. He doesn't want the airs, of... He wants a hang. He wants a hang, right? And so if you give him like, oh, yes, sir. But if you come back, it's like, what, you don't like beer? We got great beer. Like, if you don't treat him with the same energy, he's not going to be receptive to the things that you're doing there. So you start with the same level of dignity, but when your neighbor Jerry comes in, who borrowed your snowblower and didn't bring it back, like, you got to treat him like your neighbor Jerry.
Do you have a lot of Jerrys around here?
There's all types.
I imagine you have a very strong following.
We have a good following, I would say.
I believe that.
Yeah.
I haven't eaten here in a number of years. We're going to come here soon. I've been putting this off. But I came here when you guys first opened up, and I loved it. And then I used to live right up the street, and I moved, and I just never came back. And this is the type of place that definitely you go to, and you're like, I like this, I'm going to come back here. And especially your bar, like, it's very comfortable, it's very inviting. I mean, what, you can only have, how many people can you seat here at once?
We have 24 seats in here right now.
24 seats.
Which
Is that
we used to
including the bar?
have. It's including the bar.
So minus the bar, we're at what, 15?
Well, the bar is the restaurant. There's not a single person that sits at this bar that doesn't have a 3-course meal. Okay. It's very rare that happens. So it's also like...
You'd probably be upset if that happens. You're not upset, but
we're not upset.
It's not your ideal customer?
The folks that we do have followers that are just like, I'm coming in at 5 o'clock, I'm going to sit at the bar, I'm going to have a snack and a glass of wine and get out of here. That's great. The ideal customer is people that get it, and that person gets it, where it's like, we have good small plates, we have good wine. You come in at 5 knowing that you can get in and get out. That's an ideal customer as well. At 7 or 8 o'clock time, it's like, it's very rare that people don't have at least 2 or 3 courses when they're even at the bar, because it's just it's a food-driven place. This is you have the ability to order a majority of the menu when you come in. If you come in with 4 people, you could just be like, we'll take most of this, please, and you could probably cover it, because it's like, at its most petite, it's been 12 dishes, and at its biggest, I think it's been 15 dishes, and we try to keep them, if it's 12, it's like 4 in each section. If it's 15, it's like 5 or something like that.
How do you circulate those things, the menu?
Well, we talked about the product mix thing. That's one thing.
But are you doing it, how often is that conversation had? Is it with what's available?
We have it probably every few weeks.
Okay. When I see a chalkboard, it always excites me, because I'm like, okay, you guys can just go and do what you want, and you're not set by this thing you printed out and you're bound to, and it's going in the leather binding, and And okay, this is what the menu is. I love a chalkboard because it's like, hey, you know what? I just talked to the fish guy and he let me know these are in town and these are on special. I'm doing this tonight.
We still do have a printed menu as well too, but it is we do all of our own in-house printing, and the food page is a separate page from the rest. So if there's a change that day, we just pull the trigger and do it. The
It's a smart way to do it. It's available.
The chalkboard was originally when we were reopening. We didn't know what level of comfort we'd be at, and so our original idea was to do the QR codes, right, and then also have the chalkboard because some people just hate the QR code. They just hate it.
I love it.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, when I finally got a leather-bound menu or just a piece of paper menu back in my hand, it made me happier.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be at a menu and be using my phone. Or excuse me, I don't want to be at dinner and using my phone. I want my phone in my pocket. I want everyone's phone in their pocket. And I think everyone should give everyone the respect that's due, that we all came here together to bond and sit and talk and eat and drink and do that. And when you bring in when you're forced to enter the phone into the environment, it gets one phone comes out, then another phone comes out, and they're hard to ever get put away.
Yeah, and the phone is always, you can't just look at a menu. I have I have 4 messages. So if I'm just scanning a QR code right now, then I'm pulled away into these 3 or 4 messages that I'm waiting.
My wife yells at me all the time because we'll be doing something and she's like, "Hey, do this," and I open up my phone and 5 minutes later she's like, "Are you?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I totally forgot."
Yeah.
It's like an Instagram track. You open up Instagram, you're there for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I meant to just check the messages and make sure there's no one I need to get back to or I need to post something or whatever, but no, 15 minutes are gone and I have no idea where they went. I have no idea what I was looking at. And there it goes. So when you put something together like a wine menu, does the beverage director do that?
Yeah, Archie pretty much does all the final decisions on that stuff, but we all try to taste everything together. I think the main thing is we, as a team, put up things for everyone to try. For food, we set up menu tastings where Matt Ginsberg and our head chef, executive chef, and then Saul Friedman, our sous chef, they put up everything. We all sit down and taste it together, dish by dish, and see what works. That's for like a big menu change, right? And then
if you ever need another eye, let me know. I'll be happy to be here.
Yeah.
Very elevated palate.
And then for beverage, like today, we're going to update some wines on the list. So all of the front of house team is going to sit in on the wine tasting, which is all 3 of us, the entire team. And then we kind of put notes, and then when whoever we're tasting with kind of leaves, we kind of discuss what was whatever, and then Archie will make kind of the final decision based on like our tasting and discussion. And then he also does all of the cocktails, and we probably, before a cocktail hits a menu, it gets at least like 10 minor tweaks. And so then we'll taste it and then go from there. And it's also, I think, a good way to train people is for them to be a part of the actual development of the dish or the drink or the wine menu, because you're getting way more knowledge there than you ever will from reading stuff.
Well, that's half the fun when you order something and someone tells you the story behind it or how it came about, how it came to be. I always love hearing those things, the little anecdotal parts of the experience that I think bother some people. And then you have someone like me that's like, please tell me more. Keep going. Stay here as long as you want. You want to pull up a seat? Let's do it.
Well, I like it when it comes to certain things, but in the booze world, it's kind of funny because it's hard to tell what is something that the brand made up as a backstory that they're kind of pushing on people.
Let's make the drink and then we'll figure out the story later.
Yeah. Well, not necessarily the drink, but just like literally like
the drink itself.
The bottle of liquor that it comes from. There's like a lot of like, everyone's claiming me the first one to do this. Someone's lying, There's
it's like
a lot
tequila.
of
You're like, okay, so we got a celebrity. We found a mezcal factory in Mexico. Now we're just going to slap his name on it, and we're going to sell it for $500 million a year later.
Yeah, like that, kind of. I think what we try to do when we talk about things is like, what drink is good with what? Because that to me, that's the most important thing. It's like the story behind it is cool, and it's good to know, and it's bonus points if you know that. There's already kind of like a hard explanation of the restaurant's name. So giving the history of something, sometimes people, their face, they're just like, what? Why are you telling me about where this rum is from? Knowing what it tastes like and what food it will be good with is like, that I think makes it really great. Yeah.
Were you part of finding this space?
I was not. I joined them in 2016, 2017, and they had already, this was already established. Archie, our bar manager, came here about 6 months into their first year and has been with the company ever since. So,
do you know why they decided this space or how they came about it?
Don't.
No.
I know that they wanted a small, intimate space, and they wanted it to have, you know, like you said, sort of like elements of feeling like it was not in Chicago.
Yeah.
Like the whole idea is you come in here and you feel like you are no longer in Chicago for whatever reason. You're like, oh, it's kind of like New York a little bit. But it also has like a very tropical, beachy vibe.
Yeah.
And I would say...
And it's open and bright for being in a basement.
Well, we don't have the dim lights on right now. These are all like the hue bulb lights too. We do all the weird lighting too. But the whole idea is like you're supposed to come in here and feel like you're no longer where you were. And in the winter, does it ever establish that? Because you come in here and it's just like tropical and bright and cozy. I think it's just that's like a good vibe to generate in a restaurant. I feel that way when I go to like Bouchon in Bucktown. You walk in there, you're like, oh, it's like the 1970s in a cafe, in a French cafe, and it's always been here, you know.
Bucktown to a cafe.
Yeah.
And off Damon too, you're like, okay, so a bus just went by, a biker just almost hit me. We go in here,
and you're like somewhere else all of a sudden. Yeah. So that's kind of what we're going for. I bring up Le Bouchon because that's like a fan favorite amongst staff and owners.
I think that's a lot of chefs, a lot of industry people's. It's on their list.
Yeah.
I met the mother that started that place and her son once. They looked at a condo I was selling right down the street on the 606.
Oliver.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And really nice people, and you could tell the love for what they were doing. Because few people get rich doing this.
Right.
There has to be a passion behind it. For yourself, how does that come into play?
Oh, I mean, I think that, like I said, I really grew an affinity for bars and restaurants, having spent a lot of time in them, and some of the most fun times and nicest people I have met in life have been in this setting. And I was kind of already working in this environment as a result of that, so it just kind of just progressed, I think. I don't know. Sometimes this is the life that chose me.
When you get to know a lot of I imagine it's hard building these relationships, and then at a certain point someone's going to let you down, and they're going to let you down repeatedly, and you're going to have to let them go. How do you build a relationship with someone and just as quickly tell them they're gone?
I mean, that's never fun, like terminating an employee. I would say that...
You're so official about it, terminating.
Yes.
I can't even say it. I'm like fired and gone.
Fire.
It's like when someone says someone died, they're like, they've expired.
Yeah. This employee is no longer with us.
Yeah. My God, Jack died? What happened to Jack? When's the service?
Yeah. I think that more often than not, people move on when it's a bad fit, and it's actually rare that you end up having to fire people.
Okay.
If you set goals and like a plan for improvement or strict rules for a person who's underperforming, a lot of times they just will find somewhere else to work. And that is also my way of not having to fire people, is being like, hey, you're not doing this, this, and this. We're going to come up with a plan for improvement. I'm going to schedule you for this extra training. We're going to expect to see this during your shift, X, Y, and Z. Usually that person who's kind of been getting away with things, then it's like, oh, I don't want to work here if I can't if I can't get away with this, I don't want to work here, and they find another job.
So that's wise.
Yeah.
Instead of firing them, creating this contemporaneous situation, you create one where they're not living up to their end. It's made clear, the expectations have been drawn.
Yeah.
And they just bow out.
That happens a lot if you approach it with that manner. And that actually comes from management training I received a long time ago when I was working at the Kitchen, which is that place that's like more corporate store. The idea was you have to set an expectation, and if you don't set expectations with people, then you can't hold them accountable.
Makes sense,
yeah. And so if you set an expectation that you have both agreed on, it's like, hey, I noticed that you are about 15 minutes late every single day, and I need you to be here on time. So next week, let's be on time every day. And if not, we're going to have a conversation about it. So, even though that's like obviously something that's in probably the employee handbook or an agreement or whatever, you need to reiterate that, make that agreement expectation, and then circle back. And holding people who are underperforming to the same standards that you have set out, verbalizing it, getting it on paper, more often than not, they will just be like, I don't want to work here because the standards that you're holding me to don't fit what I want to do here. Does that always happen? No. Sometimes you then have to then document, write people up. This is the really not fun part of restaurants. So, and you just have to document all of that, and then terminating people is just really bad. And the worst thing is, firing of an employee is when, through no fault of their own, they cannot perform. That's the worst. They just can't. And you say, well, maybe we can move you to this position. And they're like, no, I don't want to do that. It's like, well, you're unable to meet the requirements of this position, so we have to let you go. And that's a huge bummer.
With the wage increases that have happened in Chicago, how has that affected hiring? And you mentioned earlier, does this business provide health care for the employees?
Yeah, so we added a 4% surcharge to all of our bills, which can be removed upon the request of the guest. Okay. And that goes towards covering health insurance for all employees that work full-time or full-time part-time, over 31 hours of the full-time part-time. Okay. And that just depends on what specific carrier you're working with, what the full-time part-time minimum is.
I saw, what's his name in New York?
Danny Meyer.
Danny Meyer.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, who popularized that idea.
Yeah.
And I've seen it in a number of places in Chicago, and I think it's right. I think everyone should have health care. I think our government should provide it. That's a whole other ball of wax and gambit, something we don't want to talk about.
It should, if not, it should at least be something that doesn't eat up an incredible amount of someone's expenses.
Yes. And if you're adding 4% and it can be easily taken away, I think that's a reasonable request of any guest.
It is. So we've only had a couple people, I think 2 guests mention it since opening, that they thought it was not correct. We offered to take it off. They said, no, keep it on. Their suggestion is just build into the cost of food. That's tough for us because we don't have the buying power that other places do. So if we added 4%.
I disagree with that.
Yeah.
If you see it on the menu, before someone comes here, they look at your price.
Yeah.
And if you're comparing prices, I don't think that's the best way to approach any restaurant, but many people do. If you're looking at the price of an entree here and an entree there, you don't know any of the variables. You don't know the size, you don't know the prep, you don't know any of it. But people are going to look at it and be like, it's a little cheaper here.
Exactly.
And they're both offering steak frites, so what's it matter?
Exactly. And so then you lose a sale because someone didn't, whatever.
I don't think whoever brought that up to you thought that through. You don't have to say anything.
Yeah, I can't read minds, so I don't know if they thought it through or not. Yeah.
And your daily, can you explain a day to me, and actually a day in a week? So like a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I think the weekend's pretty clear. You're serving people. You guys are dying to death. You have as many people as you can take. But as you're preparing throughout the week for that, what's it look like?
So Wednesdays is kind of like the administrative day where we do things like this. And my imperfect produce guy is calling me. He'll figure it out. we do stuff like this where we do interviews, but I do all of my office work on days like this. The kitchen is full-on prep all day on Wednesday, and also menu development stuff. We usually have like wine tastings on Wednesdays.
What is menu development?
Menu development literally means making food and tasting it, or making drinks and tasting it.
Are these new things that you're...
There are new things. I talked to Matt. I'm like, are you gonna have anything up for us to taste? And he's like, nah. He's like, it's not gonna be till 6 o'clock. So sorry, I wanted to put something up for you guys. But trying a new process for braising meats or something like that, trying a new process for smoking something, working on puree, working on a pickle, that sort of thing, getting that down. Wednesday's the day where that happens. And then also getting ahead on prep for the rest of the week.
So prepping and experimenting.
Right.
Is that fair?
Right, because you're not experimenting on Friday.
Yeah, no, not a chance.
Yeah. So that's Wednesday. Also, we do all of our own laundry here as well. So it's a day where...
That's rare, right?
It is rare. With the exception
Do you have tablecloths?
No. With the exception of the kitchen towels, we have a service for that. But all of these seersucker linens and then our polishing rags and then like aprons and stuff like that, we clean in-house and fold it. So it's a day to get ahead on laundry as well. Yeah.
You brought up Bourdain earlier, and I've read his books, and it was interesting hearing him talk about tablecloths, silverware, all the costs that go into it, and the linens and everything that goes into it. So when you remove those things, and I remember I think it was Alinea was one of the first places, like this is one thing they talk about, is not having the traditional setting when you go there. And I haven't been there, so I don't know. But you're not having, just the traditional idea of what it looks like when you sit down. I think it's nice just having a clean surface. And from a logistical standpoint...
We do set up the tables for when we have service.
Linens?
No, not linens.
That's what I mean. Like,
yeah.
I like a hard surface. You can feel like this bar feels nice, right?
Yeah.
When you have a linen under it, I don't think you're really helping by putting something on top of it. And maybe to clean it up afterwards, but I feel like it'd be easier to go in between and just clean it up.
Yeah. One thing that I think is here to stay are the table turners, the isopropyl alcohol virus-killing single-use Sani wipes, which I was against. I didn't like them, but now having used them for a couple months, or how many weeks we've been open? Like 7 weeks, something like that. I think they're great because using like a Sani bucket and a towel and switching that stuff out always leaves like residue and stuff on the table.
It's gross too.
It is kind of gross.
And that residue is absolutely right.
Yeah.
You definitely looked at a table from an angle. And yeah. 100%, especially when it dries.
Yeah, so using the virus preventative Sani wipes, the table turner ones, I was so against it because I was like, that's a waste, but it's actually, I feel like it keeps things a lot cleaner, and just having that between each guest, knowing that everything's been wiped down with one thing that is now gone and not going to be used again on another table.
Agreed.
Yeah.
COVID has pronounced that to everyone.
Yeah.
It's like, no, single use.
Yeah.
Our environment doesn't care, but let's get it all clean.
Well, hopefully the ones that we're purchasing are supposed to be biodegradable, right? Because they're just like whatever cloth, but then where do they end up is the question. Yeah.
We're going on lots of tangents here.
Yeah.
I noticed these plastic straws.
Yeah, so these are from Cocktail Kingdom, which is a great resource if you want to buy any type of bar.
Do you throw these away?
No.
They're reusable, right?
So what these get soaked in the third compartment of the tri-sink, which is the sanitizer part, and then we pull them out, and at the end of the night we put them in a bag, and then we run them through dish, and then we inspect them and then put them back in here.
I was waiting for the inspection part.
And if they're not clean, we have a thing.
Okay.
But honestly, it's incredibly rare with the method that we use that anything gets in them, because it's a soak. It's a soak and then wash in a mesh bag, and so you you can actually kind of like grab a chunk and like look through all of them, and then I would say maybe 1 in 50 has something in them. It's very rare, and they are multi-use, but we have enough to where we never use the same one during the same service.
That makes sense.
So in a given night, that's the only guest that's using it, and it's not getting used again until it's gone through the whole cycle, and then also air dried as well too. So
you're doing prep and experimenting on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Go on.
Tasting, menu development for everything, administrative stuff, which is just financial stuff, laundry, and
so do you have washers and dryers downstairs?
yeah. So
we have a basement to your basement.
It's just over there.
Back?
Yeah. So we put stuff through the cycles and then fold all the linens, get those ready. And I mean, we do cleaning projects. I water the flowers. That's about it. That's Wednesday. And for the kitchen, just the prep part, it takes quite a bit. Our dishes aren't very complicated, but they do require, I think, very specific execution and techniques. That's kind of like our MO here, is to do simple things well. Also, why the menu is pretty short too. We don't have a ton of stuff, but you can order anything; it's going to be good, you know.
No one wants to walk into a restaurant and get a diner type menu.
I mean, it's a more common complaint than you would think. Yeah, I think so. We
in the wrong place.
We've had a few people say things about, oh, the menu's small, and it's just like, I don't know if that's an observation or a complaint, and I just kind of go, you are correct. Like, I don't know what to say to that. You're right. Yeah.
It's probably an observation, because if you know the menu's small, you're just going to come here when you have a feel for something that's on the menu.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of living in a city like Chicago, where you have so many food options. If I want penne, I know exactly where to go to penne. If I want penne and curry, I know exactly where to go for penne and curry.
Okay.
If I want Szechuan, I know where to go for Szechuan. Like, I think we live in a beautiful city for food. Mm-hmm. And if I want a smaller dish or a limited menu that I know is going to be seafood oriented, then I'll come here, right? And that's the beauty of that. Some people are close and they just want to walk to the most convenient thing and like, oh, I don't like what's on the menu tonight.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say. It happens. We don't have burgers.
If we had a burger, I don't think we'd be doing the interview.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, a burger wouldn't fit on your menu, right? That wouldn't fit with the theme of what you are.
Well, if you want to sell only burgers, put a burger on your menu.
Yeah.
That's just how it goes.
Yeah.
If you put a sandwich or a burger on your menu, that'll be. It's like, why are you buying anything else? You should just do that.
Yeah. You ever been to Small Cheval? Mm-hmm. And if I want a good smash burger, it's close to my house, and they have the boozy milkshakes.
They do.
So I can get a boozy milkshake, I can get a smash burger, and it's great. Like, what else am I there for? That's why they have 3 things on the menu, or however many they have, right?
Have you been to Mini Mott?
No.
You know Mott Street?
Yeah. I've heard of Mini Mott. Where is it?
It's on Logan, right by. It used to be. Do you remember that place? I think it was called Jam, right there.
Yeah.
You're like right where the farmers market is. They do like a very small.
So they're across from the Parkway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Logan Parkway.
Yeah.
And you have Mott Street, the bigger one, but they're doing like the same thing. It's like the same concept as Small Cheval, you know.
Yeah.
And it's good.
People love Mott Street, and have never gone there and had a good experience. I hate to say it. I don't want to talk poorly of anyone's restaurant, but like, the food was good. Mm-hmm. The service was always terrible.
Huh.
From like front to back, like from entrance to getting there. And it was also the most crowded restaurant I've ever been in. But you know, you gotta make a living. I understand.
Well, we used to have 6 more seats in here, so.
If it was this small, I'd understand.
We got. It doesn't look like we have less seats, but that's because we poached our larger stools from Bar Biscay, and also got bigger tabletops. So some people have come in and been like, "I thought you guys removed seats." I was like, "We did, but we got bigger tables for you. Is that okay?"
There's nothing worse too when you go to a restaurant. Let's say you order 4 things, and they don't all fit on the table. You're like, so what do we do now?
I don't mind getting a lot of items at once. What does make me upset is getting a lot of hot items at the same time, because then by the time you get to cold. So if you give me 1 hot dish, 2 cold at the same time, I'm not going to be mad at you, even if it is crowding my table, because I'll just be like, oh, I'll eat the pierogies first, you know? But when it like is all hot dishes at the same time, man.
Good pierogi drop there.
Well, actually,
it's hard to work into a conversation.
Well, this first hot food I thought of that you could just cut like this. I don't know.
Every culture has a wonton or a thing like that, right?
Yes, they do. Yeah, stuffed pasta thing. Yeah, it's good.
So if someone comes here, what do they have to order?
They can order whatever they want. They don't have to order anything.
What's your favorite thing on the menu?
Right now it's the shrimp gazpacho salad, which is kind of like aguachile meets gazpacho. Aguachile is that ceviche-style dish that has cucumber, avocado, lime, cilantro, and we have poached shrimp in there. That's kind of the main component, and then a gazpacho kind of nestled on the side. We put salad in the name because we wanted to kind of convey that it wasn't like just a soup. But really, it's not just a salad either.
So salad threw me off when you said it.
Well, if it didn't say salad, people wouldn't order it because people are like, cold soup, who wants that? So we added salad to it, and then it kind of throws people off. But
you know what it does? It makes you ask a follow-up question.
yes.
And so I'm not turned off. I'm like, tell me more.
I think it's just really appropriate for the weather, where you have poached shrimp and all that veggie goodness with lime, and then also tanginess from the tomato and the gazpacho. I think right now the croquettes are one of the best we've ever had. They're probably the simplest that's ever been on this menu, but they're just executed very well.
I love croquettes. So I see it's with a
Salmorejo.
What's that?
So that's garlic, olive oil, sherry, tomato, breadcrumb. So it's similar to like a romesco sauce, but it doesn't have nuts in it.
What's the meat? Chicken? Or?
Oh, in the croquettes?
Yeah.
Nothing. It's vegetarian.
Vegetarian. Okay.
So they're doing smoked piquillo pepper with it.
What's piquillo pepper?
Piquillo is a red pepper. It's as innocuous as like a bell pepper.
Okay, you don't like that. You're like,
It's like
Is it a highfalutin word for bell pepper?
It's not. It is a completely different species, but it's one of those things where like they see piquillo and you think it's going to be spicy. It's not.
It sounds spicy.
It's not though. That makes it. I mean, it's great, and it's used in tons of Spanish cuisine and lots of other cuisines. It's just kind of a different style of bell pepper. Have you ever seen like the small stuffed peppers?
Yes.
Those are a lot of times piquillos.
Okay.
Like Barbariba is probably doing like a stuffed piquillo or something like that.
Yeah,
We
I
did
know what
we did a stuffed piquillo pepper.
They're never spicy.
They're not. They're not. They.
It's kind of like a mini bell pepper.
It's kind of like a mini bell pepper. It's not quite as toothy. Do you know what I mean?
It's not as thick, right?
Yeah, it's not as thick.
I know exactly what
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
talking about. Yeah.
So
the thickness of the skin or the whatever you want to call that
Right.
is not the same.
It's used because of its kind of like size and texture, right? Whereas like bell peppers kind of don't work as well for certain applications.
I feel that bell peppers are usually thrown into things because someone doesn't know what to add.
That's true, but I mean,
Whether it's an omelet
Yeah.
or it's curry. That's just my opinion.
It is a key ingredient to pepperade, which is like usually espelette pepper, but we use piquillo again, bell pepper, and then onion caramelized together, which is like a starter for tons of Spanish dishes. It's just kind of one of those things like mirepoix, where it's just like start with pepperade. So
what was the word you used?
pepperade,
No, before that.
mirepoix.
Yeah, what's that?
That's celery, carrot, and onion.
Okay.
It's a starter aromatic for tons of braises as well as stocks in French cuisine, which is kind of like, the starting point for most Western cuisine. So mirepoix, there's pepperade, there's sofrito, there's jardinera. That sort of stuff is used a lot in different cuisines.
Do you cook?
I do. Not a ton, but I can cook some stuff.
So how does that work with the owners? How active are they? Okay, let's start this over. How active is the role of the owners?
They're very active. They were not here last week because Sari, one of the owners, tested positive for strep throat. She sick. She went and got a COVID test, was clear, but then had strep throat. But usually Friday, Saturday nights, they're like the extra hands on deck, like running food, clearing tables, polishing glassware, that sort of stuff. That may not be a forever thing that they're here every Friday and Saturday night, but for now, it's kind of important because good labor is hard to find right now.
Yeah, I've been hearing that everywhere.
Yeah, and we just really wanted to come back and trust everyone that was working in the room, and they were held up for a long time seeing no one last year. And so I think they're happy to come in and be just, even if it's so much as just saying hello to people and stopping by and touching a table, that really adds a lot of value. And having them on Friday and Saturday night. Like this last week, because of, I think everyone's being incredibly more cautious when they're sick now with anything.
Yeah.
They're like, we're going to stay away. We don't want to get you guys sick. And we're like, yeah, that's a great idea. We'll just make it work.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That wasn't always the case in restaurants, though, to be honest.
I think people were encouraged to power through it.
They were.
Yeah.
And, like, that's just not the thing anymore. And honestly, if I got sick or if Archie got sick or one of our cooks got sick, we would probably just not do service that night. Because we don't have anyone else. And we're so small. We'd probably just be like, I'm so sorry, and call people and, like, cancel. Because there's no one else. Which is also why we're only doing 4 services with this very limited staff right now, because we don't want anyone to get worn out and get sick and not be able to work.
That makes sense. It's very professional.
I hope we can, I mean, if we continue to be as busy as we have been, we can probably stay at 4. At some point, we hope to hire a couple more people and maybe do a 5th day, like Wednesday, but I think we're always going to be closed at least two days, because the whole idea of just like cramming people in and being open as many hours as you can be, and it really doesn't make you as much money as you would think.
I've heard that from a number of restaurant owners, and just the Monday, Tuesday thing seems very logical to me.
Yeah.
People just had the weekend, they're exhausted, they don't want to go out again. Let those 2 days, let that be the weekend for the restaurant owners, the Monday and Tuesday.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it works out great.
The lack of labor supply that's out there, why do you think that is?
I think there's a lot. So childcare has been difficult. So if you have a kid, it probably makes more sense for you to stay home with your child than it does to go and work a low-wage job. Also, some people live in homes that have immunocompromised relatives. If you're living in a multi-generational home, you probably don't want to go out there and catch something and get your relative ill. Because even with the vaccine, if you are immunocompromised, the likelihood of you getting ill is still can be higher depending on what that is. And then I think also another way to think of a labor shortage is inflation, right? Because it's just a symptom of inflation. And we're going through an inflation because of the garden hose situation that happened, where there was less demand for everything, and now there's more demand than supply, and labor is just one of those things that is a part of that as well.
Yeah.
I don't want to blame any sort of government relief that anyone got, because that seems silly to me.
Oh, I have to disagree with you.
Well, that's your prerogative. Yeah.
Just when you print more money, the dollar becomes worth less.
Oh, I meant like in terms of the COVID relief. Blaming that and that running out in September, or states not taking.
Oh yeah, that's not the right approach. I agree. I agree with you there.
Because I don't think I think that maybe is making up some of it, but I don't think it's as much as you think. Particularly like if cost of goods go up, right, and you have a child, and you're not home making food for your family, and you then have to go out and work and pay for transportation, which is more. You have to go and maybe like eat out lunch or figure out food while you're out there, which is going to cost you more. And then you also have to pay for childcare. It's going to cost you more to go to work because your low wage job isn't meeting all of those things. It's like, I'm going to stay at home and take care of my kid because my partner will go out and work and will actually save money this way.
When you said it the first time, I thought it was very eloquent, because you're right. You know, if my wife and I had kids, and it's just the two of us, and we have to compromise us being there, but we have to hire someone there in the meanwhile.
Yeah.
Well, where does it really make sense? And should I be with my kid, or should I hire someone to be with my kids so I can make a little bit more?
Right. Well, I kind of have to depart here in a minute, take care of some stuff. Is there anything we didn't cover?
No, I thought this was great. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Thank you for everything. It's
no
great.
problem.